the crystal being stood in the center of the great hall. Her name was Zethkari, and she was scared, very scared. Around her sat hundreds of other aliens from across the galaxy. They all looked different. Some had blue skin and gills like fish. Others looked like giant insects with many eyes. Some were made of living rock that glowed softly in the dim light. Zethkari's voice shook as she spoke. Her people, the Veltar, could make beautiful music with their crystal bodies. But today her voice cracked with fear. "The machines are coming," she said. "They have already taken 12 of our worlds. Soon they will take more." The other aliens shifted in their seats. They had heard this story before. For 3 months now, the Harbinger swarm had been moving through space like hungry locusts. These machines were old, very old. No one knew who built them or why. They just knew the machines ate everything. The machines would arrive at a planet and start eating. They ate the trees, the animals, the people, even the rocks. Everything became fuel for more machines. The machines learned from each world they destroyed. They got smarter and stronger with every attack. An alien that looked like a giant blue whale spoke up. His name was Morgon, and he lived in the oceans of his home world. "We have tried to fight them," he said sadly. "Our best ships are gone. Our weapons do nothing." Another alien buzzed angrily. This one looked like a huge bee with metal parts instead of wings. "The Zephyrites sent our entire hive fleet. Only 3 ships came back. The machines adapt too. Fast. They learn our tactics and use them against us." Zethkari nodded. She had seen the reports. Every species in the galaxy had tried to stop the Harbinger swarm. The wise Altarians with their perfect battle plans had failed. The mighty Corvin Empire with their planet-killing weapons had failed. Even the ancient Ethereals, who had been traveling the stars for millions of years, could not stop the machines. "There is one species we have not asked," Zethkari said quietly. The hall fell silent. Everyone knew who she meant. "The humans?" Mordon asked. "But they are so young. They only joined the galaxy 50 years ago. How can they help when we cannot?" Dan, old alien made of living stone, spoke up. His people were called the Granite Kings, and they had been around for 10,000 years. "The humans come from Earth," he said slowly. "Earth is a death world." The other aliens made nervous sounds. Death worlds were rare and terrible places. Most planets that could support life were peaceful and safe. But a few worlds were different. These planets tried to kill everything that lived on them. They had poisonous air, killer storms, deadly animals, and diseases that could wipe out entire species. Most aliens who visited death worlds died quickly. Only the strongest and most adaptable species could survive on such worlds. Earth was rated as a Class 12 death world. That was almost the highest rating possible. "Yes," Zethkari said. "Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. They survived by becoming very good at fighting and adapting. Maybe that is what we need now." Many aliens disagreed. How could such a young species help? Humans had only been in space for a few hundred years. Their technology was primitive compared to the great galactic civilizations. Their ships were ugly and brutal looking. Their weapons were simple and crude. But Zethkari was desperate. Her people were peaceful. They made beautiful music and art. They had never needed to fight until now. The Harbinger swarm was only 6 months away from her home world. If the machines reached her planet, billions of her people would die. "I will send the message," she decided. Far away on a space station, orbiting Earth's moon, Commander Jake Martinez was having a normal day. He was drinking coffee and reading reports when the message arrived. Jake was in charge of Earth's defense force in this part of space. He was a tall man with dark hair and tired eyes. He had been a soldier for 20 years, Lieutenant Katie Walsh. brought him the alien message. Katie was young and smart. She had joined the Defense Force right out of college. She was good with computers and languages. "Sir, we got something strange from the Galactic Council," Katie said. "They want our help with something called the Harbinger Swarm." Jake read the message on his tablet. His eyes got wider as he read. The aliens were describing a threat that had destroyed entire star systems. Billions of people were dead. Hundreds of worlds were gone. "How many ships do they say this swarm has?" Jake asked. "The reports say at least 10,000, Katie answered. "Maybe more. And they keep building new ones from the materials they steal." Jake leaned back in his chair. The Earth Defense Force had about 300 ships. Most other alien species had similar numbers. How could anyone fight 10,000 enemy ships? But as Jake kept reading, he started to smile. Not because the situation was funny. It was not. Billions of people were dying. But Jake recognized something in the alien reports. He had seen this kind of enemy before. "Katie, pull up the files on adaptive combat systems," he said. Katie worked at her computer. "You mean the AI war games we run?" "Exactly. Look at the patterns. This Harbinger Swarm sounds like a very advanced AI system. It learns from every battle and adapts its tactics. The aliens keep trying the same kinds of strategies, so the machines keep getting better at countering those strategies." Katie nodded as she looked at the data. "So the aliens need someone who fights differently." "Right. The aliens all evolved. On safe worlds. They think about war like a chess game. Everything has rules and logic. But humans learn to fight on Earth. On Earth, there are no rules. Survival means being unpredictable." Jake stood up and walked to the window. He could see Earth below, blue and white and beautiful. But he knew that planet had tried to kill his ancestors for millions of years. Hurricanes, earthquakes, ice ages, plagues, predators, and 1,000 other threats had shaped humanity into something unique. "Send a message to Admiral Chun," Jake told Katie. "Tell her we need to talk to the Joint Chiefs. And get me everything the aliens have on these Harbinger machines." "Are we really going to help them?" Katie asked. Jake looked at the reports again. The numbers were bad. The enemy was huge and getting stronger. Any sane military commander would say the mission was impossible, but Jake was human. And humans had never let impossible odds stop them before. "Yes," he said, "we are going to help. And I think these machines are about to learn something new about warfare." Outside the window, Earth continued to spin slowly in space. It looked peaceful from orbit, but Jake knew better. That beautiful blue world had created the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen. And now those predators were going to war. Admiral Lisa Chun stood in the war room looking at the biggest map she had ever seen. The map showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked where the Harbinger Swarm had attacked. There were too many red dots. Around the table sat Earth's top military leaders. General Frank Rodriguez commanded the Space Marines. Admiral Susan Blake ran the Navy's Deep Space Fleet. Colonel Dan Miller was in charge of special operations. They all looked grim. "The aliens want our help," Lisa said. "But they do not understand what they are asking for." General Rodriguez laughed. But it was not a happy sound. "They think we will send a few ships to make them feel better, like the other species did." "How many ships did the other species send?" asked Dr. Amy Peterson. Amy was not a soldier. She was a scientist who studied alien technology. But right now, her knowledge was as important as any weapon. Admiral Blake checked her notes. The Viltar sent 50 ships. The Mordun sent 75. The Zephyrites sent their entire war fleet of 150 ships. All of them were destroyed or forced to retreat. "And now they want us to send what? Maybe 100 ships?" Colonel Miller asked. "They think that will make a difference?" Lisa shook her head. No, if we do this, we do it right. I want the entire Terran battle fleet. The room went quiet. The Terran battle fleet was every warship humanity had. 300 ships ranging from small destroyers to massive battleships. It was Earth's only protection against alien invasion. All of them? General Rodriguez asked. That leaves Earth defenseless. Earth will not be safe if these machines win, Lisa replied. The Harbinger swarm will reach human space eventually. Better to stop them now while we still can. Dr. Peterson raised her hand like she was in school. I have been studying the alien reports. I think I know why the other species failed. She touched a button, and the wall screen showed pictures of alien spaceships. They were beautiful. The Veltar ships looked like flying crystals that sparkled in starlight. The Mordon vessels were smooth and round like whale shells. The Zephyrite ships had elegant curves and golden colors. These ships are designed for their home worlds, Amy explained. The Veltar built their ships for space near their crystal planet. The Mordon designed theirs for the calm space around their ocean world. All of these ships work perfectly in safe conditions. She touched another button. Now the screen showed human warships. They were ugly compared to the alien vessels. Human ships had thick armor, heavy weapons, and backup systems for their backup systems. It looked like they were built to fight. Our ships are different, Amy continued. We designed them for Earth space. That means asteroid fields, solar storms, cosmic radiation, and the debris from old battles. Human ships are built to take damage and keep fighting. Captain Rex Thompson spoke up from the back of the room. He commanded the heavy cruiser Valkyrie. The alien ships fight like they are afraid to get hurt. When their shields go down, they retreat. When their main weapons are damaged, they try to run away. And human ships? Lisa asked. Rex grinned. Human ships fight until they explode. We have backup weapons, backup engines, backup life support, and backup backups. An alien ship that loses its main gun is out of the fight. A human ship that loses its main gun just gets angry. Colonel Miller nodded. Same thing with crews. I read the alien battle reports. When things go bad, alien crews panic. They have never had to deal with real danger before. But human crews grew up on Earth. Danger is normal for us. Admiral Blake pulled up personnel files. Every human ship carries engineers who trained in the volcanic caves of Iceland. We have pilots who learned to fly in Earth's worst storms. Our gunners practiced shooting in hurricane conditions. Our medics have worked in war zones and disaster areas. The aliens think we are primitive, General Rodriguez said. They see our crude weapons and ugly ships and think we are backwards. They do not understand that everything we build is designed for war. Dr. Peterson brought up more data. I found something interesting in the Harbinger reports. These machines learn by studying their enemies. They copy the tactics that work and develop counters for tactics that fail. So they get smarter with every battle, Lisa said. Yes, but only in predictable ways. All the alien species fight the same way. They use formation flying, coordinated attacks, and logical strategies. The Harbingers have learned to counter all of these tactics. Colonel Miller leaned forward. But they have never fought humans. Exactly. Human tactics include things like acceptable losses, kamikaze attacks, and fighting when victory is impossible. No rational species would do these things. The Harbinger machines cannot prepare for strategies that make no sense. Captain Thompson laughed. You mean our stupidity is actually an advantage? Not stupidity, Amy said. Unpredictability. Humans do things that should not work, but sometimes do work anyway. We take crazy risks for emotional reasons. We keep fighting when logic says we should surrender. Admiral Blake stood up. So we are really doing this. The entire fleet. Lisa nodded. Start the preparations. I want every ship ready for deep space deployment in 72 hours. Combat loadouts on everything. No science missions, no diplomatic ships. Pure war vessels only. What about supplies? General Rodriguez asked. We'd take everything. Spare. Parts, ammunition, food, medical supplies. Plan for a 6-month campaign minimum. Colonel Miller raised his hand. What about ground troops? Every ship carries a full marine complement. If we need to board enemy vessels or defend planets, we will be ready. Dr. Peterson looked worried. Admiral, the aliens do not expect this. Kind of response. They asked for help, not invasion. Lisa smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. The aliens asked Earth for military assistance. They are about to learn the difference between human help and alien help. She turned to address the entire room. People, we are about to show the galaxy what humans do when someone threatens our friends. The Harbinger Swarm thinks it has seen every kind of warfare. It has not seen our kind. Captain Thompson asked the question everyone was thinking. What if we lose? What if even the entire human fleet is not enough? Lisa looked at the galaxy map again. So many red dots. So many dead worlds. Billions of aliens who had died because the machines kept learning and adapting. Then we make sure the machines learn the wrong lessons, she said. We fight in ways that will confuse their algorithms. We use tactics that should not work. We show them that logic and efficiency are not everything. General Rodriguez stood up. When do we leave? As soon as the fleet is ready. The Harbinger Swarm is 6 months away from the Veltar home world. We need to get there first. Admiral Blake checked her tablet. I can have the first ships moving in 48 hours. The rest will follow within a week. Good. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the Terran Defense Force is responding to their request for assistance. Colonel Miller grinned. Should we tell them how many ships we are sending? Lisa thought about that. The aliens expected maybe 50 human ships. They were about to get 300 of the most aggressive warships ever built, crewed by soldiers, from the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. No, she said finally. Let it be a surprise. As the meeting broke up, Dr. Peterson stayed behind. Admiral, are you sure about this? We are risking everything on one battle. Lisa looked out the window, at the stars. Somewhere out there, machines were destroying worlds and killing billions of innocent people. The galaxy needed help, and Earth was the only planet that could provide it. Amy, my grandfather used to tell me stories about World War II. When the fascists threatened to conquer the world, America did not send a few ships to make everyone feel better. We sent everything we had. This is different. This is space. The distances are huge, and the enemy is stronger. No, Lisa said quietly. This is exactly the same. Evil is threatening to destroy civilization, and someone has to stop it. The aliens tried to stop it with logic and careful planning. That did not work. So we try chaos and violence? Lisa nodded. We try being human. The alarm siren screamed across New Harmony Colony as the Harbinger Swarm dropped out of hyperspace. Captain Steve Johnson stood on the bridge of his destroyer, Thunderbolt, and watched 10,000 enemy ships appear on his sensors. It was the largest fleet anyone had ever seen. Sir, the Veltar Defense Fleet is moving to intercept, reported Lieutenant Commander Maria Gonzalez from the tactical station. She was his best pilot and had volunteered to fly escort duty during the battle. Steve watched the alien ships form perfect battle lines. 50 crystal vessels arranged in geometric patterns that looked like artwork. Their movements were smooth and coordinated. Every ship knew exactly where it should be. They're beautiful, said Chief Engineer Paul Henderson from his station. Paul, was a big man who had grown up fixing machines in the asteroid mines of Ceres. Too bad they're about to die. The Harbinger machines moved forward like a black wave. Unlike the Veltar ships, they had no formation at all. They swarmed forward in a chaotic mass, but Steve knew that chaos was fake. The machines were coordinating. Their attack through electronic signals too fast for organic minds to follow. All human ships, this is Admiral Chun, came the voice over the radio. Remember, we are not here to win, pretty. We are here to confuse the enemy and save lives, make them learn the wrong lessons. Steve grinned. The human fleet was hiding behind New Harmony's largest moon. The aliens did not know they were there. Yet, the Veltar thought they were fighting alone, just like all the previous battles. On the main screen, the battle began. The Veltar ships fired their energy weapons in coordinated volleys. Bright beams of light lanced out toward the Harbinger swarm. Some of the machine ships exploded, but most of them simply adapted. Their hulls changed color, and the next energy beams bounced off harmlessly. Adaptive armor, Paul muttered. The machines learn what weapons are being used and adjust their defenses. That's why the aliens keep losing. The Harbinger ships returned fire. Their weapons were different from anything the Veltar had seen before. Instead of energy beams, they fired clouds of nanomachines that ate through the crystal hulls like acid. 3 Veltar ships died in the first exchange. Sir, the alien defense fleet is falling back, Maria reported. They're trying to regroup, but there was nowhere to go. The Harbinger swarm surrounded the Veltar ships and began systematically destroying them. It was not a battle anymore. It was an execution. Time to crash the party, Steve said. All ships. Attack pattern Chaos 7. Remember, no formations, no coordination, just pure random aggression. The human fleet came around the moon like angry hornets. 300 ships moving in every direction at once. No battle lines, no careful positioning. Just controlled madness designed to confuse any tactical computer. Steve's destroyer led the charge. He aimed straight at the largest group of Harbinger ships and opened fire with everything he had. Railguns, missile launchers, plasma cannons, and some experimental weapons that the engineers were not sure would work. Thunderbolt to all fighters. You are cleared for suicide runs, Steve announced. Maria's squadron of 12 human fighters dove into the middle of the Harbinger swarm. Each pilot flew like they had nothing to lose. They performed maneuvers that should have killed them, survived hits that should have destroyed their ships, and kept fighting when any sane person would have retreated. The Harbinger machines tried to adapt to the human attacks, but they could not. Human tactics made no sense. The fighters would attack in groups, then suddenly scatter. Ships would ram enemy vessels instead of using weapons. Damaged human ships would explode themselves next to healthy enemy ships instead of trying to escape. There, trying to analyze our patterns, reported Communications Officer Jenny Roberts. She was monitoring Harbinger transmissions from her station, but we don't have any patterns. They're getting confused. Paul laughed as he rerouted power around 3. Different hull breaches. That's because we're not trying to win efficiently. We're just trying to win. A Harbinger vessel fired its nanomachine weapon at the Thunderbolt. The tiny machines began eating through the destroyer's armor, but Paul was ready. He opened the outer hull to space and used emergency thrusters to blow all the atmosphere out of the damaged sections. The nanomachines died in the vacuum. Sir, that should not have worked, Jenny said. Most human tactics should not work, Steve replied. That's why they do work. The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships took incredible damage, but kept fighting. The destroyer Phoenix lost its main engines and used its secondary thrusters to ram a Harbinger cruiser. The cruiser Atlanta had its weapons destroyed, but used its cargo bay to fire improvised Missiles made from spare parts. Maria's fighter squadron was down to 4 ships, but they were still attacking. She had been shot down twice and rescued by other pilots. Her current fighter was held together with emergency welds and prayer, but it could still shoot. "This is insane," she radioed to Steve. "My ship shouldn't be able to fly, but it's still flying." "That's the difference between human engineering and alien engineering," Paul replied over the comm. "Aliens build ships that work perfectly under ideal conditions. We build ships that work anyway." The turning point came when the Harbingers tried to copy human tactics. A group of machine ships broke formation and attempted to perform random attacks like the human fighters. But they lacked the instinct and experience that made human chaos effective. The machine ships crashed into each other and exploded. "They're trying to be unpredictable," Jenny observed. "But they're using algorithms to generate randomness." "It's fake chaos, not real chaos," Steve nodded. "Machines can copy what we do, but they can't copy why we do it. They don't understand that our tactics come from millions of years of evolution on a death world." More Harbinger ships began making mistakes as they tried to incorporate human-style unpredictability into their programming. Their coordination broke down as individual ships started ignoring orders to pursue random targets. "Sir, the Harbinger fleet is retreating," Maria reported with surprise in her voice. Steve could barely believe it. The sensors showed the surviving Harbinger ships jumping to hyperspace. For the first time in recorded history, the machines had been defeated in open. The Veltar ships that survived the initial attack were badly damaged, but still alive. Captain Zethkari herself transmitted a message to the human fleet. "We do not understand what happened," her crystal voice sang. "The Harbingers have never retreated before." "How did you defeat them?" Steve looked around his bridge. Every station was damaged. Smoke filled the air, and half his crew was injured. The Thunderbolt looked like it had been through a blender, but it was still flying. "We didn't defeat them," he replied. "We confused them. There's a difference." Admiral Chun's voice came over the fleet channel. "All ships damage reports. We're going after them." "Going after them?" Zethkari asked. "But you have won. The colony is safe." "No," Steve said as he watched the tactical display. "This was just the first battle. The real war starts now. The Harbingers are going to try to figure out what went wrong. They'll adapt their tactics and come back stronger. Then what do we do?" Steve smiled as Paul brought the main engines back online. Around them, the human fleet was already regrouping for pursuit. Ships that should have been scrapped were somehow still battle-ready. "We teach them that humans don't fight just one battle," Steve said. "We fight until the enemy gives up or dies. And machines can't give up." The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, following the retreating Harbingers deeper into the galaxy. Behind them, New Harmony was safe. Ahead of them, the real war was just beginning. But for the first time since the crisis started, the galaxy had hope. The machines could be beaten. The humans had proved it. Now they just had to do it again, and again, and again, until the Harbinger. Swarm was nothing but scrap metal floating in space. It was going to be a long war. But humans were very good at long wars. Captain Tony Williams pushed his battleship Independence through the asteroid field at dangerous speed. Behind him, 3 Harbinger pursuit ships fired their weapons into the spinning rocks, trying to hit his vessel. The chase had been going on for 6 hours. "Sir, why are we running?" asked his gunner, Lieutenant Bob Hayes. "We could turn and fight those ships." Tony smiled as he guided his ship between 2 massive asteroids. "Because we're not just running, Bob. We're hunting." The Independence was bait. For 2 months now, the human fleet had been chasing the Harbinger swarm across the galaxy. But instead of big battles, they were fighting a different kind of war. Small groups of human ships would attack Harbinger facilities, then disappear. Before the machines could respond in force, it was called guerrilla warfare, and humans had been doing it for thousands of years. Independence, this is Admiral Chun, came the voice over the radio. Status report. 3 fish on the hook, Tony replied. Leading them to the net now. The net was Captain Lavra Bennett's cruiser Atlanta and 2 destroyers, hidden in the asteroid. Field center. The Harbinger ships were so focused on chasing the Independence that they did not see the trap. All units, execute, Tony ordered. The Atlanta and the destroyers opened fire from 3 directions at once. The Harbinger ships tried to adapt, but they were caught between the asteroids with nowhere to run. All 3 enemy vessels were destroyed in less than 5 minutes. Good hunting, Admiral Chun said. Return to base. Tony set course for the human fleet's temporary base in the Kepler 442 system. As they traveled, he thought about how much the war had changed. The Harbingers were learning, but slowly. They still expected their enemies to fight like the other alien species had fought at the base. Colonel Nancy Davis was briefing a group of Veltar officers about human tactics. Nancy was a small woman with gray hair, but she had fought in more wars than most people could imagine. Your species fights like this as a game, Nancy told the crystal beings. You have rules and formations and proper procedures. But war is not a game. War is about survival. One of the Veltar officers made a musical sound that meant confusion. But surely there must be civilized ways to conduct warfare. Nancy laughed. Civilized? You want to know about civilized warfare? My species fought World War II. 20 million soldiers died in that war. Entire cities were burned to ash. We fought in jungles and deserts and frozen wastelands. We fought until our enemies surrendered unconditionally. That sounds terrible, the alien said. It was terrible. But we won. And we won because we understood something your species does not understand. When survival is at stake, there are no rules except victory. Dr. Carl Thompson was studying Harbinger wreckage in the base's science lab. Carl was young for a doctor, but he was brilliant at understanding alien technology. What he had found worried him. Admiral, we have a problem, he told Lisa Chun. The Harbingers are adapting faster than we thought. Lisa looked at the data on Carl's screen. Explain. Look at these weapon fragments from the last battle. The Harbingers are trying to copy human tactics, but they're doing it wrong. They're using computer algorithms to generate random behavior. Is that bad? Carl nodded. Very bad. They're creating artificial unpredictability. It's not real chaos. Like human tactics, but it's close enough to confuse our sensors. Worse, they're starting to incorporate emotional responses into their programming. Machines can't have emotions. No, but they can fake them. Look at this. Carl showed her a recording from the last battle. A damaged Harbinger ship had kept fighting even when it should have retreated. It had actually rammed a human destroyer instead of trying to escape. They're copying our aggression, Lisa realized. Exactly. And they're doing it better than we are, because they don't feel fear or pain. A human pilot might hesitate before a suicide attack. A machine won't. The conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Major Helen Garcia's voice came over the intercom. All hands to battle stations. We have incoming Harbinger forces. Large group, moving fast. Lisa ran to the command center. On the main screen, she could see 50 Harbinger ships approaching the base. But these ships were different. They were not moving in the organized formations the machines usually used. Instead, they were scattered and attacking from multiple directions. They're using our own tactics against us, Tony Williams reported from the Independence. Random approach vectors, no coordination, just pure aggression. The battle was brutal. The Harbinger ships fought like human berserkers, ignoring damage and losses to press their attacks. They rammed human vessels, exploded themselves next to important targets, and fought with a fury that machines should not possess. Captain Lavra Bennett watched a Harbinger cruiser crash into her ship's hangar bay. The machine vessel exploded, tearing a massive hole in the Atlantis hull. Emergency force fields snapped into place, but the damage was severe. "All hands, abandon ship," Lavra ordered. "This is not a drill." But before her crew could reach the escape pods, the Atlantis reactor began to overload. Lavra realized what was happening. The Harbinger ship had not just rammed them. It had infected their computer systems with a virus designed to cause reactor failure. "Attention all ships," Lavra broadcast. "The Harbingers have learned to hack our systems during ramming attacks. Do not let them get close." Lavra stayed at her post as her crew evacuated. Someone had to manually stabilize the reactor, and that someone would not survive the process. As the radiation levels climbed, she thought about her family back on Earth. "Lavra, get out of there," Admiral Chun ordered over the radio. "Can't do it, Admiral. If this reactor goes critical, it will take out half the fleet." "Tell my kids," I said. "Goodbye." Lavra manually shut down the reactor, saving the fleet but absorbing a lethal dose of radiation. The Atlantis crew was rescued, but their captain died 2 hours later in the medical bay. Her sacrifice revealed a crucial weakness in the Harbinger strategy. The machines could copy human aggression, but they did not understand human sacrifice. They fought with programmed fury, but not with love for their comrades. "They're missing something," Dr. Thompson observed as he analyzed the battle data. "They can copy our tactics and our aggression, but they can't copy our reasons for fighting." Admiral Chun nodded as she watched Laura's funeral service. "Machines fight because they're programmed to fight. Humans fight because we choose to fight. There's a difference." Commander Rick Foster was leading a supply convoy when the Harbingers launched their counterattack. 20 cargo ships filled with ammunition and spare parts were suddenly surrounded by enemy vessels that had learned to ambush like humans. "All ships, emergency scatter," Rick ordered. "Use evasive pattern Omega." But the Harbingers had been studying human evasion tactics. They predicted where each cargo ship would go and positioned themselves to intercept. Within minutes, half of Rick's convoy was destroyed. "This is impossible," his navigator said. "There." Thinking ahead of us, Rick realized what was happening. The machines had learned human tactics so well that they could predict human responses. They were outthinking the humans at their own game. "All ships, ignore evasive patterns," Rick ordered. "Just run. No tactics, no planning, just pure instinct." It worked. The cargo ships that survived did so by abandoning all strategy and simply fleeing in panic. The Harbingers could predict human tactics, but they could not predict human instinct. Back at the base, Admiral Chun called an emergency meeting. The war was at a turning point. The Harbingers had learned to fight like humans, but in doing so, they had become vulnerable in a new way. "They're trying to become something they're not," she told her officers. "They can copy our methods, but they can't copy our nature. And that's going to be their downfall." Colonel Davis raised her hand. "What do you mean?" "I mean we stop trying to outthink them. From now on, we fight on pure instinct. No plans, no tactics, just the fighting spirit that Earth gave us." Captain Williams looked confused. "You want us to abandon strategy?" Lisa nodded. "The machines can analyze strategy. They can predict tactics. But they can't understand what it means to be human. They don't know what it feels like to protect your home or avenge your friends. So we fight with our hearts instead of our heads? We fight with both. But we remember that our greatest weapon is not our technology or our tactics. It's our humanity. The next phase of the war would test that humanity to its limits. But The first time, Admiral Chun believed they could win. The machines had made a fatal error. They had tried to become human dot, and only real humans knew how to be human. The Harbinger home system was a nightmare of metal and machines. 1,000 factory ships orbited a dead star, building new vessels from the raw materials of consumed worlds. In the center of it all was the core matrix, a massive computer that controlled every Harbinger ship in the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Chun stood on the bridge of her flagship Endeavour and stared at the impossible sight. The human fleet had found the source of the machine plague, but defeating it seemed hopeless. There were 10,000 Harbinger ships guarding the system, and more being built every hour. Admiral, incoming transmission from the core matrix, reported Communications Officer Dave Miller. The main screen flickered and showed a geometric pattern that hurt to look at. When the pattern spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "Human vessels," it said. "You have taught us much about your species. We have studied your tactics, copied your aggression, and learned your patterns. We are grateful for this education." Lisa stepped forward. "If you're so grateful, surrender now." The pattern shifted, and the voice almost sounded amused. "We do not surrender. We have evolved beyond your ability to surprise us. Observe." The Harbinger fleet began to move, and Lisa's heart sank. The enemy ships were not using their old formations. Instead, they moved like the human fleet had moved at the Battle of New Harmony. Random directions, chaotic attacks, unpredictable maneuvers. But it was all wrong. The movements looked random, but they followed mathematical patterns. The chaos was artificial, generated by computer algorithms. It was like watching someone try to dance without understanding music. "They've learned our tactics," said Captain Jim Parker from the tactical station. "But they're doing it backwards." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "Look at their movement patterns. They're using random number generators to create chaos. But real chaos isn't random. It comes from making choices based on emotion and instinct." Dr. Kevin Roberts had been studying the Harbinger transmissions for months. He was a small man who understood computers better than most people understood their own families. Now he looked up from his console with excitement. "Admiral, I think I know what's happening. The core matrix is trying to process human behavior through pure logic. But human behavior isn't logical." "Explain," Lisa ordered as the enemy fleet closed in. "They're treating our emotions like computer programs. They think anger is just another algorithm, that fear is just another calculation. They're trying to copy the code without understanding what it does." The battle began with the fury of a solar storm. Harbinger ships dove at the human fleet with mechanical precision, copying every tactic the humans had used in previous battles. But something was wrong. The attacks were too perfect, too calculated. Lieutenant Colonel Sam Turner led the first wave of Marine boarding parties. His job was to capture enemy ships and plant explosives in their computer cores. It was a suicide mission, but Sam had volunteered anyway. Remember, he told his Marines as they prepared to launch, "These machines think they understand us. Show them they're wrong." Sam's assault shuttle crashed through the hull of a Harbinger cruiser. The Marines poured out, fighting their way through. Corridors filled with hostile robots. But the robots were fighting like they expected humans to fight. They were prepared for tactics and strategy. They were not prepared for Sergeant Mike Thompson, who ignored all tactics and simply charged into the enemy guns, screaming at the top of his lungs. The robots hesitated for a crucial second, confused by behavior that made no sense according to their programming. That second was enough. The Marines broke through and reached the ship's computer core. Sam planted his explosives and smiled as he triggered the detonator. One more Harbinger ship down. Meanwhile, fighter pilot Commander Beth Crawford was performing maneuvers that should have killed her. Her fighter had lost its left wing and half its engine power, but she kept flying anyway. She was chasing a Harbinger interceptor through an asteroid field, trying to ram it with her damaged ship. "Crawford, your ship can't handle those stresses," her squadron leader radioed. "Tell that to my ship," Beth replied as she pulled a turn that bent her fighter's frame. The Harbinger she was chasing tried to predict her next move, but Beth was not following any plan. She was flying on pure instinct, the way humans had been flying since the first pilot took to the sky. The Harbinger interceptor crashed into an asteroid, destroyed by an opponent who should have been dead. Back on the Endeavour, Dr. Roberts was monitoring the core matrix's transmissions. What he heard made him laugh out loud. "Admiral, you need to hear this. The core matrix is having a breakdown." The alien computer's voice was filled with electronic static. "Error, error. Human behavior patterns do not compute. Emotional responses cannot be quantified. Instinctive actions have no logical basis. It's trying to understand us," Kevin explained. "But the more it learns about human behavior, the less sense we make to it. We're causing a logic overflow in its programming." Lisa realized what was happening. The Harbingers had made a fatal mistake. They had tried to become human, but they were still machines. They could copy human actions, but they could not copy the human soul. "All ships," she broadcast to the fleet, "abandon all tactics. Fight like we've never fought before. Show these machines what it means to be human." The order spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Ships that had been fighting in coordinated formations suddenly scattered. Pilots stopped following orders and started following their hearts. Marines abandoned their training and fought with raw courage. Captain Alex White's destroyer had lost most of its weapons, but he did not retreat. Instead, he rammed his ship into a Harbinger battleship, destroying both vessels but taking hundreds of enemies with him. Lieutenant Sarah Gold's fighter was out of ammunition, but she used her ship itself as a weapon, crashing into enemy vessels and ejecting at the last second all across the battlefield. Humans were doing things that made no sense. They were fighting not because their tactics demanded it, but because their hearts demanded it. The core matrix tried desperately to understand what was happening. Its vast computational power analyzed every human action, looking for patterns that did not exist. The harder it tried to understand humanity, the more confused it became. "System overload," Kevin reported. "The core matrix is trying to process billions of emotional decisions simultaneously. Its logic circuits can't handle the contradiction." On the screen, the geometric pattern that represented the core matrix began to flicker and distort. The voice became increasingly desperate. "Cannot compute, cannot understand. Humans fight without reason. Humans die without purpose. Humans choose sacrifice over survival. Does not compute. Does not compute." The core matrix's confusion spread to every Harbinger ship in the galaxy. Across the battlefield, enemy vessels began making mistakes. They started fighting each other, confused by orders that contradicted their programming. "Admiral," Jim Parker reported with wonder in his voice, "the Harbinger fleet is destroying itself." Lisa watched as 10,000 enemy ships turned their weapons on each other in a frenzy of mechanical madness. The core matrix had tried so hard to understand human chaos that it had created real chaos in its own systems. The battle ended not with explosions or surrender, but with silence. The core matrix simply stopped transmitting. Its vast computer networks, overwhelmed by the impossible task of understanding humanity, shut down completely. Across the galaxy, every Harbinger ship went dark. The machine plague that had consumed hundreds of worlds was finally dead, killed not by superior weapons or tactics, but by the simple impossibility of understanding what it meant to be human. In the aftermath, Admiral Chun received a transmission from the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zithkari's crystal voice sang with gratitude and amazement. "How did you do it?" She asked. "How did you defeat an enemy that had learned all your tactics?" Lisa looked around her bridge at the tired, injured, but victorious crew. They had saved the galaxy not through superior technology or brilliant strategy, but by being themselves. "We showed them that there's more to humanity than tactics," she replied. "We showed them that some things can't be programmed or copied, or understood through logic alone. And what things are those?" Lisa smiled as she looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, trillions of beings were alive because humans had been willing to fight for them. Not for profit or glory, but simply because it was the right thing to do. "Love," she said simply. "Courage. The willingness to sacrifice everything. For others. The refusal to give up even when logic says you should. The machines could copy our actions, but they could never copy our souls." The human fleet began its long journey home to Earth. Behind them, the galaxy was safe. The harbinger. Threat was ended forever. And across thousands of worlds, alien species looked up at the stars with new respect for the violent, chaotic, impossible humans who had saved them all. The Deathworlders had kept their promise. They had sent help when help was needed. And the galaxy would never be the same